What's up, everyone, and welcome back to HBCU Game Day. This is week 2 of the preseason HBCU NFL Report, where we keep you guys updated on some of your favorite Black college football stars in the pros. As always, I am Symone, joined by Lut. Lut, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing fine, Symone, doing just fine.
So, Lut, we have a lot to get into, including your 3 players of the week. And as always, you always have a special mention, a player that's a runner-up for one of your players of the week. So we're going to get into that. But first, we got to get into a piece of news. And I already know in the comments they're going to be like, Kobe Durant, Kobe Durant. How often do we have to hear about him? But if he keeps making news like this, then we're going to have to keep talking about it. We can't ignore him. And he got a special recognition, not from an NFL star, but from an NBA star this past week. Kevin Durant claimed our guy Kobe as a possible cousin.
Yeah, I think he said something to the effect of there are not a whole lot of African Americans named Durant, or maybe not even a whole lot of Durants that he knows. So he claimed the Kobe as a cousin. And, you know, we might trace it back and might find out they actually are related. But they are related in terms of they're both making some noise on professional levels. So that's good.
That's definitely good. Always good when you're getting recognition, especially on the national level. Kobe has definitely got a lot of press this offseason. His NFL career hasn't even started yet officially, but he's got a lot of press. We love it. And continuing on with some South Carolina State University Bulldogs. You have 2 Bulldogs as your players of the week after their NFL Week 2 preseason performance. Starting with the Offensive Player of the Week, who popped out?
Yeah, I picked Alex Taylor. He's a second-year guy out of South Carolina State. When he came out, Buddy Pugh was very high on him. Not surprised, Buddy Pugh said that he made the grade in the NFL last year as an undrafted player out of South Carolina State. Now he's on the roster of the Cleveland Browns, and they're taking a good look at him as he played all 74 snaps on offense for the Browns this week as they got a 21-10 win over Philadelphia. Taylor is 6'8", 301 pounds. They like his size. They played him at left tackle. He was protecting the blind side for the quarterbacks for the Browns this week. Probably a lock, I would think, to make the team either as a backup, maybe even the challenge as a starter for the Browns. So good effort by him. So we did pick him this week as the Offensive Player of the Week.
And it's great that Taylor was able to get a whole lot of reps that last preseason game, and the Browns lost, Luke, to the Eagles. You know I'm an Eagles fan. I was going to let you slide, but, since I'm an Eagles fan, the Browns lost. It was a preseason game, so it don't really matter. But, I got to take any win I can get as an Eagles fan.
Hey.
But the Browns, they're deep at the offensive line position, so it's really good that Taylor was able to get that exposure in that Week 2 game. So that's great for him, especially with the 53-man roster cut coming up next week. Teams will have to cut their teams down from 80 to 53. But our Defensive Player of the Week, Lou, we both think he's obviously a sure lock for this roster. Who is your Defensive Player of the Week?
Well, it's former 2-time MEAC Defensive Player of the Week, of the year, I should say, Joe Thomas, a linebacker who's now with his 5th team in the league, which means that, we talked last week about HBCU players that move around because of a special skill that they have. Joe Thomas is a legit NFL player, never can get in one spot where he stays for many years. But he's now in Chicago, and Roquan Smith was holding out. I think he's this week he was holding in, as they say now. He's decided to come on back and play and worry about his contract later. Joe Thomas has made an impression in the 2 preseason games he's played. And this week he had 7 tackles, which is unusual in the preseason that you even leave a guy in long enough to play and to get 7 tackles. But he has been and is a playmaker in this league. So he was the Defensive Player of the Week this week. We had several HBCU defensive players who had double-digit tackles, but he was at the top of the heap. So Joe Thomas wins the Defensive Player of the Week out of the HBCU NFL Report.
Joe Thomas is someone who's listed right now as a starter at linebacker for the Chicago Bears. And if he keeps performing like that through this preseason. We only have one more preseason game that he can see himself starting, and not only making the roster, but of course starting for the Bears this season.
The funny thing, Symone, is that he's done the same thing, whether he's been at Green Bay, at Dallas. He's always performed well. He is a playmaker, or you could just call him a player. He's a football player, and he makes football plays. And we'll see how much he plays for the Bears. With Roquan Smith out, they had a lot of openings, and he, I think, probably confirmed the fact that he's going to make the 53-man roster.
So moving on to special teams, we have a guy that we've talked about a lot that has major special teams player of the week, some SWAC representation now. Lou, who did you name special teams player of the week?
Yeah, he's a guy out of Grambling State, Chester Rogers. This is his sixth year in the league, and everywhere he's gone, he's played for now. I think this is his third team. He's been productive also with Tennessee, I think with Indianapolis where he started. He actually had 1 year where he didn't play, where he had injury that kept him out the whole year. But he is now on the Houston Texans primarily as a kick returner. He will always, if the opening happens, get some reps at wide receiver because he's proven to be a dependable and productive wide receiver in the pro ranks. But if not, he will fill in as a adequate and very good kick returner as he's done at those previous stops. So he wins the special teams player of the week. He had a 30-yard punt return. That'll open some eyes in the preseason. They signed him late. They didn't sign him initially. They signed him right before camp. But he's a veteran who has proven that he can be productive in the league. So, when we look down the cut list today, we saw none of the HBCU guys. That means that there are 32 guys left still on NFL rosters as we head to the final preseason game and to that final 53-man cut down.
So teams started the offseason with a 90-man roster going into camps and training camps. So far they have been required to cut down 10 to 80 at this point. So like you said, that's really good. You made a whole list because I actually read your articles, Luke. I saw you made a whole list of HBCU players to watch in the NFL. And like you said, 32 of the players are still on rosters, right?
That's exactly right. And a lot of the guys, that are veterans, that are all pros, like Shaquille Leonard, like Teron Armstead, even on the defensive side, Grover Stewart of Indianapolis, Javon Hargrave from your Philadelphia Eagles. These guys have not even played in the preseason. We probably won't see them in the preseason. Maybe a little cameo appearance for this last game, maybe the first series or something like that. But these are guys whose roster spots are guaranteed and assured, so we won't see them. What we will see, however, is there's probably going to be, I think that last year there were only 22 players, HBCU players in the league. It looks like we're going to top that number this year, which will be the first time there's been an increase in quite some time. And a lot of that has to do with all of that publicity that was accorded about no players being drafted a couple of years ago in the NFL. So now we focused on the Jacoby Durants and the Joshua Williams, Ja'Tyre Carter, and the James Houston, those four that were drafted this year, who look like they're going to make it. And I think we may even see a few undrafted free agents make it. For example, the kid Shamar Bridges, that was our player of the week last week. He didn't get a lot of targets this week, but he'll have a chance maybe to impress in this last preseason coming up game for the Baltimore Ravens.
And you talk about undrafted free agents having chances to make the 53-man roster or even the practice squad. You had an undrafted free agent from last year who was your runner-up for Offensive Player of the Year, Keon Smith. What did you like from what you saw from him?
Well, I like the fact that they gave him max snaps also, as they did not only for Alex Taylor, but also Joshua Miles out of Morgan State with Arizona. He actually played 100 snaps. Keon Smith actually played 72, which means they took a real serious look at Keon Smith to see if he could stand up under, 3/4 of the game kind of pressure. There's rumors that he is under the tutelage of Teron Armstead down at Miami. And obviously, he couldn't be in a better situation in terms of learning from a guy who's a perennial All-Pro. So Keon Smith has shown well. He's the and keep this in mind. This is big news because he's the second Fayetteville State player, along with Joshua Williams, actually in camp. And we haven't had a lot of CIAA players past Trenton Cannon of Virginia State over the past couple of years. So to have two Fayetteville State players, it says a lot, not only for Fayetteville State, but what the job that Richard Hayes is doing down there as the head coach.
Definitely. Well, Lou, it was another eventful week. NFL preseason report, a lot of guys showing out, a lot of different names. I like how we had different names this week than last week, but we have one more preseason game left, you guys. Next Tuesday, teams are required to cut their roster down from 80 to 53. That will be August 30th, and then Wednesday, August 31st, teams are allowed to start signing players to the practice squad. So make sure that you guys are locked in here at HBCU Game Day, and especially with the HBCU NFL Report, to keep it updated on all of your favorite Black college football stars in the pros. As always, I am Symone Stanley, joined by Lut. Thank you guys so much for joining us.